It was a night like any other. As sheets of rain soaked the grey, lifeless streets of the city, I turned the handle of my apartment door and stepped inside. As I looked around the empty, dusty old room that doubled as my office, a grim but familiar sense of dread washed over me. I took off my hat, threw my trench coat over the battered leather armchair, and grabbed the half-empty bottle of whiskey from the side. I poured myself a glass and slumped into the chair. The only light in the room came from the flashing neon sign belonging to the new fish and chip shop that had just opened across the street. It was called Frying Nemo. On another day, in a different life, I might have chuckled at that. But not today. Not today. I could hear that voice again, that insidious whisper. It was her voice, but it couldn't be her. She was gone. It's your turn, you know. Your turn to host a podcast. I can't do it, I replied to no one. The voice was right. It was my turn. I knew my only way out of this dead-end life was to make it big with Jimmy and the boys at Arcade Attack. But it had been so long since I'd hosted a whole podcast. What game would I choose? More importantly, would I be able to do it justice? Racked with the usual doubts, I lit a cigarette to steady my nerves. I grabbed the nearest dog-eared magazine from the piles around me and began leafing through it mindlessly. It was then, by the warm amber glow of my lucky strike, that I saw it. The tagline that changed everything. An epic tale of crime and corruption in the land of the living dead. It jumped out at me instantly, as if the words had lifted off the page and were suspended in the smoke I exhaled. Could this be it? Could this be our ticket out of here? There was only one way to find out. Welcome to the Arcade Attack Podcast.
Hey, bravo!
That's too much pressure now for future intros, isn't it?
The pressure's off. As intros go, bloody good.
Frying Nemo.
Come on.
I was going to piss myself laughing. I have to stop myself.
Thanks. Hello. I'm your host, Keith, and I hope you enjoyed that little film noir-inspired intro. It seemed like the most appropriate way to start a podcast about the single greatest film noir adventure game set in the Aztec land of the dead. That game,
the only one, isn't it?
Well, there you go. That game, of course, is Grim Fandango, and joining us on our journey to the 9th level of the underworld today are Dylan.
Hello.
James.
Hello.
And the glottis to my Manny Calavera, Adrian.
That's the kind of thing kids say when they glottis.
It would. So what is it? What is it? So Grim Fandango, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a 1998 adventure game. It was directed by
The Tim Schafer himself.
Tim Schafer, and developed and published by
LucasArts.
Yes, for Windows. And this was the only way you could play it until 2015. Mm-hmm. The only way you could play it. And then a remastered version was released for PS4, PlayStation Vita, Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, and iOS. And then eventually, in 2018, it was made available for Nintendo Switch.
I thought you were going to say...
And then in 2020, you could finally play it on Xbox.
Oh, just a short time after the original
just
release.
22 years later,
God.
yes. I played the remaster, obviously. Didn't have access to a PC back in the day. They didn't change too much with the remaster. The game itself was essentially the same. They changed the lighting, and some of the polygons were tidied up. But a lot of it remains the same. It's essentially the same game. So before we talk about it, get into it, what's everyone's experience of Grim Fandango? Have you played it? When?
I've played about an hour of it.
When?
The other day.
Okay. How? What did you play it on?
No, not Game Pass.
Not Game Pass?
I had it on my Steam library from
okay.
yonks ago.
Okay.
You still got Game Pass in there. We're less than
I know,
we're
right?
less than 5 minutes into a pod.
I said not Game Pass, but it is on Game Pass.
It is on Game
He
Pass.
still uttered the words.
Hey,
Yeah, I've... so it came out... What year did it come out again?
1998.
So around that time, I did get a demo disc. So I have played it before, the demo of it, years and years ago. I got stuck very soon, and it's only a demo, so I think I probably put about half an hour into it. And since then, I haven't played it. Many years since I played it. A few years ago, I bought like a LucasArts kind of package on Steam. Might have been the same one actually. And you know when you sometimes think, I'll buy this game. They said, why don't you buy them together? And they include the Dig, Loom.
That was it.
Fate of Atlantis. When I bought Fate of Atlantis.
I got all of those.
Exactly.
Ah.
You didn't get the Monkey Island games. I don't know if you got the same one, but you got all the other kind of obscure ones. So I played Fate of Atlantis. We did a pod on it.
Yes.
Then I played The Dig, which we didn't do a pod on. There you go. Sorry. Very good game, actually. I completed The Dig. And I was like, I do want to play another game. Loom looks a bit weird. I did actually give Loom a bit of a go. I might get back into it. But I did start getting back into Grim Fandango. This was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I didn't get past year one. Mm-hmm. I gave up. And then you told me...
I kept talking to you about it.
You said, you've got to play Grim Fandango. I'm like, well, I know, but, you know...
I know.
But I kind of got stuck. And, you've got to see it through. So I have completed the game key.
Yeah,
I completed
yeah,
it about
yeah.
a month ago, I'd say. Fully,
Excellent.
all the way through. Loved it.
Nice.
Oh, sorry. Spoiler.
Oops, here we go.
So-
Hijack again.
Yeah.
James.
Probably the most fledgling of experience. So, I mean, the thing is, I've watched side by side comparisons of like the original, the remaster, just to kind of learn, what they did originally, what they've done now.
Yeah.
I've looked at like, and I've gone through quite a lot of, gameplay footage from a couple of different streamers, etc., that have shown different parts of the game or the intro and the interactions, all the different, but. How I never played this originally, because I had a PC at that time. And how I never played it, because I think I'd have loved it, and it looks so weird and wacky, but cool, and the visuals are great, and you've got so much choice in terms of all the responses you can give. So, I've watched a fair bit of video footage of people playing it,
but
but I've not actually played it myself. So, but that may have to change, I think, because it just looks like such a cool game.
Yeah.
So,
that was it. A bit like you. That was what attracted me to it. Was the look of it and the style of it, and I just thought this
quirky.
because I've never really played LucasArts adventure.
I found
games.
it a bit odd that you're like, you've got to play this point and click game. I'm like, hello, I'm the point and click master over here.
Well,
I should be saying this.
The way I played it, I'm sure it was like a double pack thing on the PlayStation Store with Full Throttle remastered, which I haven't played yet.
Which is another Tim Schafer game.
Yeah,
He was the
it
main
was the
guy.
game before that he made before Grim Fandango.
He remastered Full Throttle first, didn't he?
Believe so.
Which
yeah.
I've got that as well. That's,
Yeah.
I've got that as well, I haven't played
we,
it yet.
we did do a pod on it. I think we hosted it.
Yeah. So that was it, and for whatever reason, I decided to give Grim Fandango a go.
Because you hate motorbikes, that's why. You knew that Full Throttle
Everyone
was
knows that. No, I definitely need to go back and play Full Throttle. But yeah, so I played Grim Fandango. I loved it. This was a couple of years ago. I played it all the way through. And then, with a view to sort of doing a podcast, I completed it again a few months back while I was hassling A to hurry up and play it. So before we get into the game too much, Day of the Dead imagery is obviously one of the big influences on the game. But how much do we as Brits really know about El Día de los Muertos?
I know it is a celebration in Mexico.
That's good.
There you go.
I know
good. That's-
Disney
hey.
Pixar made I like the film. I know not everyone's a big fan of it, but Coco, I thought it had a good heart to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a Pixar film. It's aimed at kids, but I've got a good message. And that, I think, is relatively close to what the whole... I think I might be wrong
The
here.
idea behind it.
The
and
idea
stuff.
behind
Yeah.
it about,
Okay.
I'd echo exactly that, and obviously the same thing as Dill. Yeah, I don't know an awful lot about it, but know
Okay,
obviously about
so
the
that's it. So I
celebration.
thought
And definitely the imagery. Yeah.
Yeah, the imagery is everywhere, like the skulls and, and so I thought, let me look into it. So here's a crash course on the Day of the Dead.
Nice, lovely.
So the Day of the Dead, El Día de los Muertos, I apologise for my poor Mexican
I'd say
Spanish,
that's pretty good.
is a Mexican holiday where families welcome back the souls of their deceased relatives for a brief reunion that includes food, drink and celebration. A blend of Mesoamerican ritual, European religion and Spanish culture, the holiday is celebrated each year from October 31st to November the 2nd. While October the 31st is, of course, Halloween, November the 2nd is All Souls Day, or the Day of the Dead. According to tradition, the gates of heaven are opened at midnight on October the 31st, and the spirits of children can rejoin their families for 24 hours. The spirits of adults can do the same on November 2nd. So the roots of the Day of the Dead, as celebrated in Mexico, among those of Mexican heritage in the United States and around the world, go back some 3,000 years to the rituals honouring the dead in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. The Aztecs and other Nahua people living in what is now central Mexico held a cyclical view of the universe and saw death as an integral, ever-present part of life. Upon dying, so this is kind of important for the plot of the game as well, about the underworld. And so upon dying, a person was believed to travel to Chikunamictlan, the land of the dead. Only after passing through 9 challenging levels, a journey of several years, could the person's soul finally reach Mictlan, the final resting place. In Nahua rituals honouring the dead, family members provided food, water and tools to aid the deceased in this difficult journey. This inspired the contemporary Day of the Dead practice, in which people leave food or other offerings on their loved ones' graves or set them out on makeshift altars called ofrendas in their homes. In medieval Spain, people would bring wine and pan de animas, spirit bread, to the graves of their loved ones on All Souls' Day. They would also cover graves with flowers and light candles to illuminate the dead souls' way back to their homes on Earth. In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors brought such traditions with them to the New World, along with a darker view of death influenced by the devastation of the bubonic plague. How do we celebrate it now? It's not as commonly thought just a Mexican version of Halloween, although the two holidays do share some traditions, including costumes and parades. On the Day of the Dead, it's believed that the border between the spirit world and the real world dissolve. During this brief period, the souls of the dead awaken and return to the living world to feast, drink, dance and play music with their loved ones. In turn, the living family members treat the deceased as honoured guests in their celebrations and leave the deceased's favourite foods and offer other offerings at grave sites or on the ofrendas built in their homes. The most prominent symbols related to the Day of the Dead are calacas, which is the word for skeletons, and calaveras, which is the word skulls. That's literally what that's what it means. Yeah.
Which, you know, well.
In the early 20th century, there was a printer and cartoonist called Jose Guadalupe, incorporated skeletal figures into his art, mocking politicians and commenting on revolutionary politics. His most well-known work, La Calavera Catrina, or Elegant Skull, features a female skeleton adorned with makeup and dressed in fancy clothes. This 1910 etching was intended as a statement about Mexicans adopting European fashions over their own heritage and traditions. La Calavera Catrina was then adopted as one of the most recognisable Day of the Dead icons. So, as we all know, during contemporary Day of the Dead festivities, people commonly wear skull masks, eat sugar candy moulded into the shape of skulls, and the pan de animas of All Souls' Day rituals in Spain is reflected in pan de muerto, the traditional sweet baked good of the Day of the Dead celebrations. Other food and drink associated with the holiday, but consumed year-round as well, include spicy dark chocolate and the corn-based drink called atole, or atole, I don't know how you say that.
Have a go.
You can wish someone a happy Day of the Dead by saying Feliz Dia de los Muertos.
Feliz Dia de los Muertos.
There you go. So I got most of that information from a really good article on history.com.
Nice.
So thank you very much, history.com. So
I feel well and truly up to speed now.
There you go.
So, excellent.
I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So from the Day of the Dead, we're going to sharp turn into film noir.
Those two don't combine, do they?
They don't combine. You can't combine those.
You'll never make a game with those two, innit?
No. How would you guys define film noir?
Can't.
Still can't.
I always, when
I know what it
picture-
is, but I can't
How
actually
would you
define it.
Yeah.
I picture black and white, smoky, a kind of, today we gotta, I woke up this morning, I gotta solve this crime, I don't know what to do kind of
Welcome
attitude.
this morning in a pool full of blood. I didn't know where I was.
Max Payne, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Oh,
kind of
Max Payne, maybe it's like a modern noir. Isn't
modern
it?
noir.
Story.
Yeah. Film noir is more set in the 30s,
Half-
maybe.
yeah.
Kind of that kind of Dick Tracy kind of look.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might be
Half
way
bottle
off.
of whiskies, Tommy guns, cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like soft lighting, kind of very fancy mirrors, and that
Lots
kind
of
of stuff.
shadows. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can't really put your finger on it, though, can you? Can
Well,
it be
I tried to find a definition for her. So, film noir is a stylized genre of film marked by pessimism, fatalism, and cynicism. The term was originally used in France, funnily enough, after World War II to describe American thriller or detective films in the 1940s and 50s, although Hollywood's film noir stretches back to the 1920s. Film noir literally translates to black cinema, and French critics used it to describe Hollywood movies that were saturated with a darkness and pessimism not seen before. It's hard to say really if it's a genre or a style of film. And the elements of film noir that I'm about to sort of go through don't all have to be present for a film to be considered noir, but they're all quite common with the style. So I've looked at the elements of film noir and then just referenced them to the game and see if you agree, Aid, as you played through it. So you always have like an anti-hero protagonist.
They're my favourite heroes, I've decided.
I would say Manny is an anti-hero protagonist.
Yeah.
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 Femme fatale. Meche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Tight, concise dialogue.
Again, we're talking about the game, but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
dialogue is excellent in this game.
It's brilliant,
It's
isn't
funny,
it?
it's interesting.
It's really funny.
Some point-click games, I'm not going to I wouldn't say it's really LucasArts, but you kind of like skip through it very quickly. But this one, you want to choose, you want to listen. Yeah, I agree. The dialogue's brilliant.
High contrast lighting, now especially in the remaster. When you get like the lighting coming through a blind and stuff like that, it's fantastic. And another one that was really part of it was post-war disillusionment, which I think sort of added to like the pessimism and the cynicism and the outlook of those kind of films. So we're almost done with this, but if you're interested in looking into the genre, some of the most famous examples include The Maltese Falcon, Laura, The Blue Dahlia, Touch of Evil. Touch of Evil.
Not that one.
It's regarded as one of Orson Welles' best films, and Casablanca as well, of course.
Oh, good old Casablanca.
Yeah. So, how did Grim Fandango come about, and why is it such a spectacular sort of combination of these two cultural, I don't know, would you call them cultural landmarks? Day of the Dead, film noir?
I have an idea. Well, by this time, Tim Schafer was the bee's knees at LucasArts. Let's be honest.
Yep.
By then, Ron Gilbert would have left. Dave Grossman, I think, wouldn't have been there as well. These are the big people that really started the company. Really, there's much more big names. I can mention. We've interviewed quite a few of them actually. There you go. But by this time, Tim Schafer basically had full control. So not full control, but if he wanted to make a game based on Freeway Cola, he could make a game based on Freeway Cola, couldn't he? It's up to him. He had that much gravitas after the success of his previous titles.
Other cola brands are available.
Yeah, it's the thing I just saw in front of me. But I reckon I'm assuming this, but I reckon he's very interested in both those areas, and because he had so much power and influence, then he could do whatever he wanted.
How's this for an idea? We're going to combine these two genres. Nobody could say no.
Let's see if Aid was right. So Grim Fandango's development was led by Tim Schafer. He was co-designer on Day of the Tentacle, and obviously he created Full Throttle. And he's also known more recently for Psychonauts.
Never played it, but I played Broken Age. I don't know if you're going to mention that.
No, that wasn't on my notes.
Broken Age is another point-and-click game.
Page.
Yeah, no. It's another point-and-click game. It's very good, actually, and you sort of control. It's kind of set in the future. It's really interesting graphics. You control two different people, at the same sort of time. You can click between, and eventually the two stories overlap.
So when was that? Like, was it? So that was after Grim Fandango.
Way after.
Yeah.
But before the remaster.
Yeah.
So it's probably about
in the
2010. It's people shouting at me now, but it is a good game.
I would check it out. So he conceived a Day of the Dead themed adventure before production of Full Throttle began. And he submitted both concepts to LucasArts for approval at the same time. But Full Throttle was accepted instead because they felt it had a greater mainstream appeal. Obviously trying to sell this niche guy. It's a bit film noir, it's a bit Day of the Dead. Whereas, this one's about biker gangs, and it was an easier sell. So they accepted Full Throttle. But because it was such a huge hit, obviously, like you said, it kind of gave him the sway to say, now we can make the other game that I want to make. So it opened a way for him to create Grim Fandango. Obviously, as we've mentioned a few times, it combines several Aztec beliefs of the afterlife and the underworld. With 1930s Art Deco design and a dark plot reminiscent of the film noir genre. The Aztec motifs were influenced by Schafer's decade-long fascination with the folklore, and he recognised the potential for the 4-year journey of the soul in the afterlife as the setting for an adventure game.
So the 4 years?
That's how long it's supposed to take. It's 4 years.
Yeah.
And then obviously that relates to the 4 years in the game.
Because I was thinking that you said earlier there's like 9 levels.
Yes.
So part of me was thinking, why can't it be like 9 years or 9 levels?
Wow, yeah.
I know point and click games aren't levels based really, but I just thought that'd be quite 9 chapters. But 4 years makes sense now.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it was expected that the 4-year journey is how long it would take you to reach the 9th level of the underworld. So Tim Schafer once stated that once he decided on the afterlife setting, he then thought, what role would a person want to play in that scenario, in the Day of the Dead scenario? Obviously, you want to be the Grim Reaper. Of course you would. Yeah. And that's how Manny got his job. Then I imagined him picking up people in the land of the living and bringing them to the land of the dead, like he's really just a glorified limo or taxi driver. So the idea came of Manny having this really mundane job that looks glamorous because he has the robe and the scythe, but really he's just punching the clock.
Yeah.
Schafer recounted that in Mexican folklore, the dead were buried with 2 bags of gold to be used in the afterlife, one on their chest and one hidden in their coffin, such that if the spirits in the afterlife stole the one in the chest, they would still have the hidden bag of gold. And he loved this idea of a criminal element still existing in the afterlife. And that led to his idea of a crime-ridden sort of film noir style to the world of Grim Fandango. He opted to give the conversation-heavy game the flavour of film noir set in the 30s and 40s, saying that there's something that I feel is really honest about the way people talk that's different from modern movies. Which, I guess depends on how much film noir you've watched.
I suppose often there is
talking and
pessimism in honesty, I suppose, is there? Or,
True.
I suppose, depending on how you look at it. But yeah. Honesty can be brutal, can't it?
It can. It can. But also that kind of like straight talking, I suppose.
No frills.
Yeah. There were several particular film noir movies that he used as inspiration for much of the game's plot and characters. He said that the true inspiration was drawn from films like Double Indemnity, in which a weak and undistinguished insurance salesman finds himself entangled in a murder plot. And there are several scenes in the game that are directly inspired by genre films such as The Maltese Falcon, The Third Man, Key Largo, and most notably Casablanca. Two characters in the game's second act are directly modelled after the roles played by Peter Law and Claude Rains in the film. The main villain, Hector Lemon.
He's great.
Yeah, he was designed to resemble the character of Signor Ferrari from Casablanca. And his voice was also modelled after the actor who played him.
Is he the one with the moustache, even though he's a skeleton, or is that someone else?
Has he got a moustache? He's the big guy. He's obviously the main baddie.
Yeah.
Has he got a moustache? He had like a trademark chuckle.
Yeah.
And that was based on the actor that played Signor Ferrari in Casablanca.
Signor Ferrari.
Not Enzo Ferrari.
Not Enzo Ferrari, not to be confused.
Visually, the game drew inspiration from various sources. The skeletal character designs were, of course, based largely on the Calaca figures used in the Day of the Dead, while the architecture ranged from Art Deco skyscrapers at the beginning to an Aztec temple in the fourth year.
Yeah.
The team turned to LucasArts artist Peter Chan to create the Calaca figures.
I've emailed him.
Have you?
And I actually asked him, would you ever want to do an interview for Arcade Attack? And
Yeah.
he said, thank you for the lovely invite, but I'm too shy, I don't want to do it.
Oh, really?
But he said, but here's Bill Tiller's email, ask Bill.
We already have Bill Tiller
And
on.
then that's why I went kind of a Bill.
Oh,
Bill did a
excellent.
lot of the backgrounds for Monkey Island, Third Monkey Island game, so, and did a full, I think that's some other stuff as well. But
Yeah.
Peter Chan, I've got his email, he's very, very, very nice, very humble, very, very polite to me, but maybe I'll try and twist his arm a little bit more, what do you reckon?
When we get a text interview if you don't want.
Yeah, maybe, but he's done some brilliant art for
Yes, he
for
seems
some-
like a really cool guy because if you go on YouTube, they made a whole web series following the making of the remastered game
Yeah.
and going through the work that went into sort of redoing the lighting and the polygon graphics. And they re-recorded the soundtrack as well. So there's lots of cool stuff in there. And Peter Chan is in it talking about the sort of inspirations for the designs and stuff like that. The art of Ed Big Daddy Roth was used as inspiration for the designs of the Hot Rods and the demon characters like Glottis. I don't know if you're familiar with his artwork. If you Google him, you probably would recognise it. He do like these sort of crazy kind of hot rod designs with like kind of monster demon looking characters driving them with their tongues hanging out and like bulging eyes and stuff.
It rings a hell of a bell.
Yeah. So yeah.
Can I just say something?
Go on.
One of my favourite bits of Glottis, and I don't know if you noticed it, it's so silly.
Go on.
But one of his pupils is bigger than the other.
Yes.
It's just, it's
Giving
hard,
you the eye.
it's just because he's kind of a bit crazy, a little
He
bit
is.
off his head, and that just one pupil's slightly bigger than the other. And I was like, is that it's not a mistake? It just
I don't
adds to
think so.
I
It just
think
adds to like the craziness of his look.
I like Glottis a lot. Just going to say that.
And originally Schafer had come up with the name, so different names for the game. Deeds of the Dead,
Yeah.
as he had originally planned Manny to be a real estate agent. Deeds of the Dead. Other potential titles included The Long Siesta and Dirt Nap before he came up with the title Grim Fandango. Development began soon after the completion.
Why is it called? I mean, Grim Reaper, but with Fandango?
What is a fandango? Is it a
Do the
dance?
Fandango?
Is it a dance?
Thunderbolt unlining.
It's a dance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think.
Do you know what?
Maybe it's the dance of the Grim Reaper.
Even before I played the game
Dance of
properly,
the Dead.
Keith, years ago, and my wife would tell, I always say, it's Grim Fandango, as in,
What, you use it as a phrase
it's a phrase.
for something
That's
that's
a
bad
terrible
or-
dance.
No,
It's a
as in
Grim
Grim
Fandango.
I'm sorry, Tim, but we say it as a negative. It's such Grim Fandangos and stuff. It's so
Okay.
funny. Obviously, from the game originally, I got it, but
That is a grim fandango.
Yeah, Fandango is a lively partner dance originating from Portugal and Spain.
All right, James, to step up. Let's give it a go.
Do it.
Scaramouche.
Really? Yeah, traditionally accompanied by guitars, castanets, and hand clapping.
Oh, there you go.
There you are. Ready?
Demonstrate in case you've never heard any clapping listening. There's a demonstration.
Just to give you that sound
clapping.
effect.
Development began soon after the completion of Full Throttle in June 1995. Grim Fandango was an attempt by LucasArts to rejuvenate the graphic adventure genre, which was now starting to decline. In response to complaints that Full Throttle was too short, Schafer set the goal of having twice as many puzzles as Full Throttle, which demanded a more lengthy and ambitious story to accommodate them. According to Schafer, the game was developed on a $3 million budget. It was the first LucasArts adventure since Labyrinth not to use the Scum engine, instead using... Do you know what the engine was called for this one?
Oh, blimey. I just spoken to the man that made the Scum engine.
It was called Grim something, wasn't it?
It was Grim with two M's.
It wasn't. It wasn't. So it's the Star Wars. It was based on the engine used in Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
It was called the Sith engine. Yes, and that was the basis of the new Grime engine.
Grime.
The Grime engine was built using the scripting language called Lua. This design decision was due to LucasArts programmer Brett Mogilevsky's interest in the language, and is considered one of the first uses of Lua in gaming applications. Check out Adrian's interview with Brett.
Is this
for
my
more
confession
on
time?
Grim Fandango.
I have to say, Brett was great. He's a really good guest. He gave some great stories about
did, yeah.
And, he was... Again,
He was honest.
he was honest, and I hate. We're not a negative bunch,
No.
but I think it's fair to say that him and Tim didn't always see eye to eye, and he's quite honest. But he was respectful, but they had a few not arguments, disagreements maybe, and it's an interesting development. He said it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows.
No.
But my point is, when I spoke to him, I did say, I love Grim Fandango. It's great. It's such a great... And in my slight defence, I had played the demo before then, but not the full game. So sorry, Brett. I kind of sort of BS my way a little bit
lied.
through it.
It's a great interview.
Look at he's shaking his
There's
head.
that honesty again. Dylan's like, what? Why am I letting him do these interviews?
Besmirching the good name of Arcade Attack.
How good is our name?
Not great,
Is
let's
it
be
good?
honest.
But it's a great interview.
Oh,
There's a lot of interesting background stuff on the making of Grim Fandango, so you check that out. The success of the game led to that language of Lua, the scripting language. It was used in many other games and applications, including Escape from Monkey Island.
Yeah, which is the kind of
never heard of it.
It's 3D, isn't it? It's the 3D one, I believe. It's the full fun in the series. It's not my favourite Monkey Island. It might even be, well, I didn't particularly... It's all right. It was good. It was okay.
You did really well to not say the worst.
Yeah.
Then you managed to avoid it.
Well, Return to Monkey Island, I'm sure it's going to be excellent, which it should be out now when this pod comes out. So there you go.
Ooh, lovely.
It was also used as the language for Baldur's Gate.
Dark Alliance.
No, just Baldur's Gate.
Just Baldur's Gate,
Very light.
the PC one.
So, obviously, one of the things that stood out about Grim Fandango compared to LucasArts' previous games was the 3D. 3D look was the first time they'd made a game with polygons based on.
So Monkey Island 4 was before or after this then?
After this.
Are you sure? Okay, I must...
Well, considering that
I've got
because this was the first game where they used the Lua scripting language, and then
I'll Google
Later
it.
Are you
on.
checking? Because I
Go on.
I thought
That's Dylan's research
that this
noise.
was the last point-and-click game LucasArts ever made, Grim Fandango.
Oh,
I might be wrong.
it
'cause
was. Maybe they were around the same time then.
it came
Right,
out...
Escape from Monkey Island
Go on.
was made in... Drumroll, please. Keep rolling because it's still loading. Still loading.
Still loading.
Still 2000.
There you go.
I apologise.
That's okay.
Whoa.
That's okay.
I
It makes
apologise.
it makes sense based on what I had written
Adrian
down.
got something wrong.
It has not got a favourable review.
Well, you got that right.
Sorry.
The free... And again, I've only played the properly the remaster of Grim Fandango, but the Monkey Island 3D one's clunky. Have you played it? Has anyone else played it?
Never even.
Some of the puzzles are good, some of the jokes are quite funny, but I like the 2D Monkey Island art. Give me 2D.
Well, as H sits there saying, give me 2D, let's talk about the 3D design for Grim Fandango. So, Grim Fandango mixed static pre-rendered background images with 3D characters and objects. Love that look, obviously. Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Part of this decision was based on how the Kalaka figures would appear in 3 dimensions. there were more than 90 sets and 50 characters in the game to be created and rendered. Manny's character alone comprised of 250 polygons, which in a modern game is nothing, but obviously in 1998, quite a lot. The development team found that by utilising three-dimensional models to pre-render the backgrounds, they could alter the camera shot to achieve more effective or dramatic angles for certain scenes, simply by re-rendering the background, instead of having to have an artist redraw it for a traditional 2D adventure game. They also adapted the engine to allow Manny's head to move separately from his body, so that he can make the player aware of objects nearby. The 3D engine also aided in the choreography between the spoken dialogue and the body and arm movements of the characters. Additionally, full motion video cutscenes were incorporated to advance the plot, using the same in-game style for the characters and backgrounds to make them nearly indistinguishable from the actual game. Which, in the mid-90s...
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
that's a
you know, if you
huge
think,
deal.
again, mentioned Resident Evil, the cutscenes were so different from the graphics in-game.
Yeah.
You know, it was a bit jarring. But in Grim Fandango, it is like watching just a continuation
I've
of
watched
the
John-
game.
That's very cool.
I spoke about this in a previous pod, but Mirror's Edge even, the first game, the cutscenes are like cartoons. So you're playing this kind of 3D game, and then the cutscenes are almost very good quality, but just cartoon kind of animation. Whereas Mirror's Edge Catalyst, they basically made the cutscenes how the game would look.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I quite like the cartoon look. So
Yeah, sometimes. It's more charming.
It's more charming. And so I'm not, but again, the cutscenes are very well done in Grim Fandango.
I like the way it's just kind of seamless. It's just like continuing the story. Yeah. So the setting of Grim Fandango, as we've said a few times, takes place in the Land of the Dead. And the story of the game takes place in the 8th Underworld. Yes, so it takes place in the 8th underworld of the Land of the Dead, where recently departed souls aim to make their way to the Land of Eternal Rest, which is the 9th underworld, on the 4-year journey of the soul. Good deeds in life are rewarded by access to better travel packages, provided by the DoD, which stands for...
Day of...
Department of the Dead?
Close enough. Department of Death.
Oh,
There you go.
To assist in making the journey easier, such as sports cars and luxury ocean cruises. The best of which is the number 9, an express train that takes just 4 minutes rather than 4 years to reach the 9th underworld.
I wanted to ask, what transport would we get?
Oh,
I don't think I'd get the train.
No, I'd get the cane with the compass that the guy gets at the beginning.
Dylan would have like a Skoda, wouldn't he? An old
The Skoda,
fashioned
I'd have a car. I think I would have a car.
But in fairness, a Skoda would probably get you there now.
Well,
It's BMW,
20 years, 25 years ago, maybe not.
It's a
But
Volkswagen underneath, isn't it?
How would you double the value of a Skoda?
cut it in half.
You fill the tank up with petrol.
That was good.
Such 90s jokes we've got going on here. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely more relevant in the 90s.
This game's in the night to keep at me.
You laughed. You
I
laughed.
liked it. I laughed. I clapped. I had a good time. Yes, so souls who did not lead a kind life are left to travel through the Land of the Dead on foot. Such souls often lose faith in the existence of the Ninth Underworld and instead find jobs and stay in the Land of the Dead. The travel agents of the Department of Death act as the Grim Reaper to escort the souls from the Land of the Living to the Land of the Dead and then determine which mode of transport the soul has merited. Each year on the Day of the Dead, these souls are allowed to visit their families in the Land of the Living. The souls in the Land of the Dead appear as skeletal Kalaka figures. Alongside them are demons, like Glottis, that have been summoned to help with the more mundane tasks of day-to-day life, such as vehicle maintenance or bartending. The souls themselves can suffer death within death by being sprouted.
Yeah, with the flower bullet
Yes,
things.
the result of being shot with sproutella-filled darts that cause flowers to grow out through their bones.
Oh, no.
So you can be killed in the Land of the Dead.
You do see that.
No, you are
Maybe
already
like-
dead.
You do see that.
Controversial.
Dead, double dead.
In Coco, you can re-die if everyone forgets you. I don't know if you remember that in the film.
okay.
So that's why photos are important in Coco. If you're completely forgotten, you've got no memories, then you sort of die within the. Is that fair, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's it.
In fact, it's in something I've been watching recently. They talk about that. It's like you live as long as the last person who remembers you. You live on as long as the last person who remembers you.
Yes.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Which is a fair shout.
Yeah.
Well, luckily we got over 200 odd podcasts, so we'd be living for a long time if people keep discovering us, wouldn't we?
That's true, we're going to live forever.
Many of the characters are Mexican and occasional Spanish words are interspersed into the English dialogue, resulting in a form of Spanglish. Many of the characters in the game smoke, following a film noir tradition, Although the original game manual asks players to consider the fact that every smoker in the game is dead.
Yeah.
Which is a really nice touch.
Which is a fair point.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Very fair point.
That's a good way of being able to include it to stick with the film noir thing. But, they're already dead, guys. So, all right, so now let's have a look at the story. So, Aid, so I'm going to pull you in to help me look at puzzles and things. So, but I'm going to go through what happens in story. So, this is the spoiler warning now.
Yeah.
I'm not
You've
gonna
been
play it
warned.
through.
Dale's not going to play it through.
I will.
I don't think it will ruin your enjoyment of the game, James.
I will, because it's a tenner on Xbox, and I might give it a go.
There
So,
you go.
but do you know what? I think this is going to enhance it rather than spoil it. So
yeah. But if
hit me.
anyone listening wants to play it and doesn't want any spoilers, this is the time
to
stop
pause
listening and go and play it. So, as we've mentioned, the game is divided into 4 acts, each taking place on November 2nd, the Day of the Dead,
Oh, that's clever.
in 4 consecutive years. So, year 1. Manuel Manny Calavera is a travel agent at the Department of Death in the city of El Marro, forced into his job to work off a debt to the powers that be. Now, we never find out what this debt is.
I thought we'd find out at the end.
No, you don't.
don't find out what it
you
is.
never find out what it is, what he's done. But he kind of hints throughout the game that he didn't exactly live a good life.
And actually, interesting, some of the characters in the game, they often hint about why they're still
Why
there.
they're there,
They
yeah.
never all, and a lot of them don't give you a proper answer, but I think that's quite clever. You always want to.
It's quite intriguing, yeah. And
Yeah.
you sort of expect to find out at the end why Manny was there, but you don't. And I guess it kind of doesn't matter. You just need to.
I
He
wanna
maybe
know.
didn't live a
Mate,
perfect life.
just
but-
lets you make your own conclusions about him, I suppose.
Manny is frustrated with being assigned clients that must take the 4-year journey due to their poor living choices, and is threatened to be fired by his boss, Don Copel, if he does not come up with better clients. Manny steals a client, Mercedes Meche Colomar, from his successful co-worker, Domino Hurley. The department computers assign Meche to the 4-year journey, even though Manny believes she should have a guaranteed spot on the number 9 due to her pureness of heart in life. After setting Meche on her way, Manny investigates further and finds that Domino and Don have been rigging the system to deny many clients double-end tickets, hoarding them for the boss of the criminal underworld, Hector Lemon. Lemon then sells the tickets at an exorbitant price to those that can afford it. Manny recognises he cannot stop Hector at present, and instead, with the help of his driver and speed demon Glottis, he tries to find Meche on her journey in the nearby petrified forest.
Yeah.
During the trip, Manny encounters Salvador Sal Limones, the leader of the small underground organisation, the Lost Souls Alliance, or LSA, who is aware of Hector's plans and recruits Manny to help. Manny arrives at the small port city of Rubicava and finds that he has beaten Meche there and waits for her to arrive. So
That's year one, yeah.
That's year 1. That's a little summary of the plot in year 1. Aid, year 1. Talk to me.
Well, so
Talk to me.
oh man,
Talk to me. Terry Tibbs.
I have to say, and I like the game a lot. I think it's very good.
Yeah.
I actually like the 3D graphics. The reason I don't like the Monkey Island 3D graphics, sorry, off on tangent, is because I'm used to the original look and feel of Monkey Island. So that's my excuse for saying that. But I think the 3D actually adds to this. Year 1 took me a long time to get through. Okay, and I'll be honest with you, Keith. I stopped and started off and going, I'm stuck here. I'm getting a bit fed up because the puzzles are hard.
Yes.
So, for example, one puzzle that I found very hard. You know when you have to sort of those blobbing machines,
Yes.
and you have to sort of chuck,
You have to bung
put
them up,
balloons
don't you?
to bung them up. You've got to do it in the correct order.
Yes.
And I thought, I've done it. And then you go into the machine where the shoots where the messages.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen that Futurama episode with Hermes, and it's got all the different
All the tubes.
all the
with
tubes.
message- yeah.
You got to stop that thing. So I thought,
That's it.
I've got a card. I've got my playing card.
Yes, yeah.
And I was like, finally, this is a tough. I put my card in. It didn't do anything. I was like, why isn't it working? It hasn't got enough friction or something.
Getting stressed.
And I just don't want to play this game anymore. But Keith was like,
So you
"Have
had
to
to cursing me going, oh,
Then you had to look at a walkthrough, right?
And then Keith was like, have you played Grim Fandango? I was like, then, okay, I did check a walkthrough. There's a hole puncher on
you had to hole punch it.
on the desk. And you
Otherwise
have,
the air don't go through it.
That's it.
did that, put the card in, managed to get the message. It lets you get into, I think, your bosses or
Is
your
it Domino's office?
I think so.
or-
It links into that, and you have to nick the gum shield, and
Yes, yeah.
then you have to. Then, of course, you have to find coral or glowing coral and tie it to some string. Yeah, that's what you always do with coral. Tie it to string.
This is why I stopped playing it.
It's some of the puzzles are really obscure. It's like some of the remember the Silent Hill 2 puzzle, like with the cans of orange drink.
Yeah,
that you
but
have
I got that.
you have to shove those down the disposal, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because there was a certain logic to that. I
suppose.
It was a bit more abstract. Not as abstract as this. That's why I gave up. This reminded me, when I started playing Grim Fandango, it reminded me of those point-and-click games that you could not do yourself, that nothing was logical about it. And this is worse because you've had loads more rooms. It's all 3D. It's easier to do in like 2D rooms because you can just get all your items and kind of mash things, like mash this over there or combine this
pick that up.
I just couldn't do it. And I had to do that one. I had to look up. And maybe even the puzzle before that, the one after that, the thing with the coral and everything, I was like, I am beyond trying to play a game and keeping on looking at walkthroughs. So that's why I've been off.
You eventually get to the roof and there's pigeons, isn't there?
Yes.
And what I thought was quite clever, you have to use the cat balloon.
That's it,
You meet a balloon salesman early and he can different shapes, can't he?
You've got to get some weird balloon off him as well, so you don't just get one balloon.
He can do 4, I think it's 4 different types.
So what? Yeah. Where? Oh, I don't know. Anyway.
But isn't the game built on obscurity to a degree, though? In terms of,
but it's hard to make those connections in your brain when you're trying to solve a puzzle, though.
Well,
it makes no sense. James, go and play it.
I like left field. And
it is left field.
Yeah.
The puzzles are some. While we're on year 1, actually, I must make a point because I don't remember, Keith. There's only one bit in the game, I think, where you actually see the land of the living, and that's in year 1.
Yeah.
That's the freakiest bit in the game.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's so cool. So, Manny goes to the land of the living to get his lace.
Is that in the diner?
Yes. Yeah, so you've seen that.
And
that's
when they got the weird faces.
They're kind of like cut out collages,
They're like newspaper kind of scrapbook kind of cutouts.
That's weird.
I was like, what's going to happen? I was like, what is this?
Yeah, it's like he said, it's the only time you go to the land of the living.
And it's the most unnerving bit in the whole game.
I think Manny comments on it as well, how freaky they look. Like how freaky he finds the living.
Maybe that's how living look for the dead.
That's how the dead view the living.
I thought that was a very interesting part. I thought in a way that could have been explored further, but in a weird way, less is more. You kind of get a feeling.
You get a little hint.
You'd rather be in the kind of
in the land of the dead.
Thank you. I found year 1. I found the bit when you get to the caves in year 1. You have to drive through.
Oh, in the woods, the petrified forest.
I went through every.
Yes.
And I put the sign down. I thought, that points to that cave. I'll go through that one.
Have to, yeah.
Oh, that was so frustrating.
The bit with the sign, it eventually points, doesn't it, to where...
But you're supposed to walk, aren't you? Not drive.
Yes, you have to get out of the car and walk.
Those caves are almost like red herrings. They're not even there for any reason.
I was not impressed. I'm not even going to lie. I used to walk through for most of the game.
Dill's staging a silent protest.
I'm beyond this.
He's smacking his thighs.
Did you see that puzzle?
No, but it doesn't surprise me.
But the thing is, even with the walkthrough, that was difficult because you just walk. There's a huge area in the forest, and you're just walking around, putting the sign that is it here. Is it here? Is it here? And eventually it kind of guides you. And
we're being honest, aren't we? So some of the puzzles are very clever and quite interesting. Like, for example, I'm trying to think of a good one. I quite like the puzzle with those kind of demon moles or beavers. I thought that was quite clever. You had to get...
in the forest,
the forest.
Yeah, and you had to throw the bones.
I thought that was quite clever and time it properly and you can get across it.
Yeah. But demon beavers,
Oh, no!
Some of the puzzles were wacky and crazy, and I had to use a walkthrough now and then. I tried not to, but
you're a better man than me
because I had to keep going. I wanted to keep going.
Yes.
It's controversial. I don't think the puzzles are its strongest point. I think the story, the setting, the characters, and the look and feel of the game are its strongest point. Absolutely. I think some of the puzzles are good. Some of them almost stopped me playing the game.
I think we'll get to the reception later on, but I think that's kind of the consensus. Exactly what you said there. It's probably the weakest part of the game, but the rest of it is so strong.
There are.
You want to keep playing.
Some really good puzzles. There are some flashes of brilliance.
Yeah.
It's just some of them I find very. That doesn't quite.
Dumb.
In Monkey Island, it's dumb to get like a chicken with a lever on its thingy and
it
stuff.
Isn't, but the thing is, like with those 2D games, because when they kind of constrain you to so many screens, they're easy to kind of get by power of deduction. This Grim Fandango thing, you go for hours on this, and I was like, I am beyond this. I was just not.
It's fair. It's fair.
Sorry.
It's fair criticism.
Sorry, it looks lovely, sounds lovely. I love it. Apart from that. But then you have to do those to get through the game.
You do.
What's just a question? What's average game time for year 1?
For me, over a year.
25 hours.
Actually, see, that's a good question. If you're doing it and having to work the puzzles out, Aid can give you a better answer than me. I cheated.
Like I said, because I got that pack years ago, and actually, I think out of all the games, even before I think it was the first game I played, and I must have played hours in. I couldn't get past a certain point. I should have done a walkthrough really, but then I kind of sort of gave up with it. So it was over a year since I probably got through year 1. It's true.
Wow.
But then year 2 happened. I don't know if you
well.
Okay, sorry.
We're going to do them one at a time. So year 1, yeah. So I mean, you're the best person to talk about the puzzles because I'm a massive cheat. But I really love the look of the setting of El Morro.
Yes.
So you've obviously got their office building, which is all Art Deco stylings, and you could go outside. And what I really like about it, and again, I suppose this is to do with like memory limitations and things like that. It really gives you this great idea of what's going on without actually showing you. So you go outside the building, and when you go and meet the guy selling the balloons, you've got this idea of the festival and the carnival and everything going on the other side.
You can't even see it.
You can hear it. There's a couple of like air balloons and things.
It's weird.
But but you can't see any of it, but it gives you the feeling of what's happening. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you did this, but if you run all the way in the opposite direction, you can run towards the freeway.
Yeah, it doesn't let you go very far, does it?
You can't go very far, and there's nothing there, and nothing moving. It's just a static background, but there's loads of traffic noise. And again, it just it gives the illusion of like this busy
it's an open
city.
world,
yeah.
The sound design's very good. It looks lovely.
So I really like that. And obviously you go off into the petrified forest, which is like a massive kind of change in sort of tone.
I assumed that'd be the start of year 2, just because it was so different.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. Obviously, it was.
And that's pretty cool. And you got like giant spiders and the beavers and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Were you pointing at me when you said beavers?
Just because you found demon beavers so funny.
Well,
and James loves beavers.
I wasn't. Anyway, year 2, Keith.
Year 2. A year passes, and the city of Ruba. Oh, actually, we haven't mentioned it. So at the end of year 1, Manny meets his client from the beginning of the game in. Is it like a laundromat or something? Yeah. And he's just sweeping the floor. And he gives Manny his mop, and he's like, "Here you go." And then a year later, so Manny is very upwardly mobile, I think is the term, isn't it? So a year later, Manny has turned it into a casino and bar, and he's suddenly this super successful business owner. So years passed, and the city of Rubalcaba has grown. Manny now runs his own nightclub off a converted automat near the edge of the forest. Manny learns from Olivia Ofrenda, the owner of the Beatnik Blue Casket nightclub, that Don has been sprouted for letting the scandal be known, and that Meche was recently seen with Domino leaving the port. So
reckon they play Car Wash quite a lot.
No, year two, I think it's, again, the consensus is probably people's favourite year in the game. I don't know if you would agree with that, Aid, in terms of the location, the setting.
He's thinking
about
puzzles.
He's thinking about it. I don't know about the puzzles. How you feel about the puzzles?
Do you want my truthful answer for year 2?
Go on.
I found it probably the most frustrating year.
In terms of the puzzles and
stuff? In terms of, because there were so many locations, there's so many characters, and there was I know there was a couple, maybe 2 or 3 overall missions. You had to get like a tag, like a tag to get on the boat. You had to get tools and whatnot. Mm-hmm. There was some, but I just found it quite. What's the word I'm thinking? Quite scary. It's like a lot to do.
Bit
Overwhelmed. That's a better word. I did struggle with year 2. It's funny. I got through year 2, and 3 and 4 were a lot easier for me personally. I don't know why.
3 and 4 are a lot shorter, aren't they?
A lot shorter
in terms of puzzles.
2 looks great, and some parts of 2 I was a bit annoyed at though.
Okay.
You didn't properly see the racetrack, did you? You didn't see, because there's a big cats race. I wanted to see that. You want to see
it. Again, it's another one of those where it hints at this matter. But I don't know why. I don't know if this is something to do with like the Day of the Dead that I'm not familiar with. But there's a racetrack that you go to where people place bets and stuff, but they like huge cats.
Yeah.
But you don't actually see it. You get as far as the steps, you can see like a still image of the crowd and the track. And then I think Manny says something like, "Oh, I don't like crowds."
Yeah.
And you can't go any further. But yeah, no, I see again, you're giving a nice, this is really, really good actually. You're giving a good idea of what it's like to try and play it without a walkthrough, to do the puzzles and stuff. Whereas I'm going, "Oh, doesn't it look nice?"
I quite like there's a big litter tray, isn't there? Massive.
Yes, it's giant cat litter tray.
It looks like a swimming pool, but with sand. You can see it's quite gross.
That's when are you having to get is it can opener or something?
Yeah,
or what is it?
You have to get something from there, and you use like a metal detector. I think
metal detector. Yeah.
You use a metal. I think you get the metal detector. Yeah. You have to dive in or whatever. Oh, it's disgusting.
That's it. Yeah, you have to dig around.
Yeah, you have to use that for later.
Cat litter tray.
There's some really good bits in it. Like, you got to talk to that lady, and she what's that bit again?
Is it the one with this? Like she's like the security desk.
Security.
Yeah.
And she has to put stuff in a bunker and it sort of explodes.
Yeah.
She's really cool, actually, I have to say. Again, though, the biggest red herring in the whole game, and it annoyed me, is that big air balloon.
The airship.
And I was I know it's in the sky, but it looks like you should be able to get there eventually, like a ladder, but you never get to the airship.
It's just It's just hovering there. And again, it's just like a still image, I think, but the sound of the motors, and it's when you're running across the bridge there. But did you go into the Blue Casket and did you do the stand-up?
Yes.
Like the open mic
That's
thing
really
with
clever,
the poetry and stuff.
So you have to try and win how would you call them? Kind of like...
So they're like beatnik, hipstery poetry types, but they're also part of the LSA, like the underground.
Yeah, you used to impress them.
Yeah, you have to impress them with your poetry and stuff.
That's quite a clever bit because you can select and it can... I think there is a right order, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
So I was winging it and pressing all these weird...
But it's just so many cool elements. It's just a really cool sort of area to explore. The tattoo artist and his little submarine.
Yeah, and you had to distract him by opening the fridge door, then opening another fridge door bit of it. So time he came round,
that's it. Yeah,
little bits. Yeah, the tattoo artist was cool, and I quite liked actually the casino bit as well.
Yes,
yeah,
the casino.
Yeah.
That's it's just a really cool place to explore.
A good puzzle. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's
but it is about that big, the wine barrel, and you have to get from the wine barrel. You have to get in the wine barrel at the start. That took a while to get you. You had to go down to the cellar, and you can control the pickup truck. If you remember correct. But you have to get there down. I was like, how on earth do you get this big? It's a huge wine barrel. So you have to empty it first.
Yep.
Are you just reading words out of a dictionary at the moment? Wine barrel, truck.
Well, so Glottis is busy getting drunk at this private club, isn't he? And you end up locking the. That always cracked me up as well, like the French waiter that you lock in the.
Because he would
use your scythe to lock him in the cupboard, and he's terrified of the dark.
The scythe's interesting because your infantry changes.
Torture people. I don't know.
Technically, the Grim Reaper. So
yeah, but you apart from your scythe, your infantry changes quite quickly between different years. But your scythe is always there, isn't it? It's a mainstay.
Yeah.
And you use your scythe probably at least once a year, don't you? I would say for a puzzle. Yeah. You have to use it, not as much as you might realise, but you can use it to do certain things. Yeah.
So that's quite fun. Yeah, and you have to use the forklift truck to stop the lift, but you have to put it in the right place.
Oh, that was a bit...
Yeah. Bit fiddly. But yeah, year 2, I love it. I just love Rubicava. It's such a cool place. And again, it just does... You don't actually meet that many characters, but it gives a really good illusion of it being this buzzing sort of.
And like you said earlier, Kev, it's not just skeletons. You've got Glottis, obviously, but you've got the bees who are like trade unionists, aren't they?
The
very
bees,
interesting. And there's other monsters as well. I think one of the monsters, I think the waiter was a bit of a monster, wasn't it? The French waiter. Was he a skeleton? But definitely there's a monster
guy that
guardian.
owns that nightclub is like a big pink monster. Yeah. There was another bit I was going to mention.
I do like Glottis. He's funny though.
He's great.
I like the way he's introduced. When he backs out of his little hut.
His tiny little hut.
He's like, he just squeezes his bum out of it.
That's it. Well, that's it. And Manny has to kind of persuade him that he's not too big for the cars. The cars are too small.
Yeah, kind of like, I can relate to that. Yeah. Everything in the world is, you're not too big. Everything in the world is too small.
They make everything
Amen
too small.
That. Yeah.
I like that bit at the beginning of year 2 actually as well, when Manny's just sort of smoking a cigarette outside, and then he goes down into the bar and Glottis is playing piano. And they've got like the white suit jackets. That's very Casablanca, that whole thing. And I think the design of the bar and the nightclub is based on Casablanca. That's very cool. Very cool. Right, year 3. So where do we leave Manny at the end of year 2? He's got himself on the boat.
Yeah, he had to complete a few missions. I love I actually quite like
the ship captain.
He's great.
Yeah, he's quite funny.
So
he manages to get himself a job on the boat. That's how we leave it at the end of year 2. At the beginning of year 3, Manny is somehow the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
So he's killed the captain.
So hold on, he's hold on a minute. This guy's amazing. So he takes
within a year,
laundromat to nightclub.
Yep.
Kind of stowaway to captain.
Basically. Yep.
Wow. In 2 years.
Yep.
3. Well, 2 years.
Yeah. Did you want to say something?
No. Keep going.
So year 3, Manny gives chase, and a year later he tracks them to a coral mining plant on the edge of the world. Domino's been holding Meche there as a trap to lure Manny. All of Domino's clients who had their tickets stolen are also being held there and used as slave labour, both to make a profit with the coral mining and as a way to keep Hector's scandal quiet. Domino tries to convince Manny to take over his position in the plant, seeing as he has no alternative, and can spend the rest of his eternity with Meche, but he refuses. After rescuing Meche, Manny defeats Domino by causing him to fall into a rock crusher. Manny, along with Meche, Glottis, and all the souls being held at the plant, then escape from the edge of the world.
Edge of the world, or the producers flat
It's
Earth.
literally on the edge of the
it's
world.
very clever.
Yeah, it looks like a waterfall. But yeah, this whole
And you are underwater, aren't you, for quite a bit of the game?
Yeah, so the boat gets sort of cut in two, doesn't it?
It's crazy, yeah.
And then it sinks, and then there's a giant octopus.
Yes,
that you sort
there
of
is.
have to fight, and then you end up using the submarine that it goes into.
That's right, yeah. I quite like Year 3. I like the look of it. I like the underwater elements of it, I have to say. I thought that's quite clever. And you eventually meet that guy walking by with the light, don't you?
Yeah.
He's quite, I quite
This
like
little
that guy.
lad of mine.
That song, even though I thought it was quite funny, it did go on a bit.
It does.
Yeah.
And you have to. He walks around the back of the screen. You have to catch him at
Yes,
the right moment.
you do.
And if you miss him, you have to wait for him to go all the way.
Oh, I know. I missed him the first time. I wasn't sure what to do with him, but
It took me about 2 or 3 goes. Again, even though I knew what I was
missed him the
supposed to
first
do, I was
10
like,
times.
oh, no. But yeah, again, it's another really cool location.
Some bits of the game, and it's not all about just controlling Manny. You have to control like cranes and vehicles, and I think they do it relatively well. But like for example, the crane bit was a bit clunky. Do you remember that? You have to
It is. So you've got
around.
the overhead sort of map view, haven't you? And you have to move it round, and then you have to. So I told you about this. This is a warning as well to anyone who decides to play the remaster on the PlayStation, at least. If you do any of this in the wrong order, the game crashes. So the first time I played it, the game crashed and I'd lost all my progress.
Are you joking?
I'd saved at the
they
start.
must have patched that by now, no?
Maybe. This was a few years ago. Because I Googled it and I looked and it was a known thing. Other people had had the same issue.
God.
So because I'd only it doesn't auto-save the remaster. Because I hadn't saved since the start of Year 3, I was like, I don't want to do it all again. So then I did. I left it for ages.
Yeah.
And then came back to like, okay, I'm going to have to start Year 3. And
It's quite a convoluted way of getting the crane working. You have to tang up the cables and put it up here and do this. You have to do it. I can see. Well, without the bug, it's quite difficult to work out the exact chain reaction.
well, that's it.
Excuse my
And
pun.
it would be easy to do it in slightly the wrong order.
Yeah,
And
really
then
easy.
Cause that bug.
Yeah, over the head. But it was good. I quite like 3. I like the element of it.
I think it's quite brief overall. I don't think there's too many puzzles in Year 3 once
No.
you've got the crane done. But yeah, then they're marching off towards the Aztec temple
And you can
and the ninth gate of the underworld.
you can see where the gate is, the train where it
Yes.
should go through. So, well, that's the
That's
end of the
it.
game then.
Yeah.
You try and go through it, and he's like, oh, I better help my friends out.
That's it. So Year 4, they travel for another year until they reach the terminus for the number 9 train before the ninth underworld. Unfortunately, the gatekeeper to the ninth underworld won't let the souls progress without their tickets, mistakenly believing they've sold them. And it's further revealed that a wicked soul has either not paid off their debt or tried to cheat the gatekeeper with a fake or stolen double-end ticket to gain entrance. When this happens, it causes the express train to transform into the Hell Train.
I was going to say, that's such a great bit
It's
of the game.
cool, isn't it?
You see these happy punters ready to go in to live their life. And it's just like a cartoon almost. Like it turns into one of those weird, scary, demon-faced
That's it,
trains.
yeah.
It's
And it
hard
kind of jumps off the rails and goes straight down to hell. So it's all the people that have like bought their way onto the train who don't
Well, they got
deserve
their
to go
comeuppance.
to- Yeah, exactly. It's a really cool moment. So yeah, it sends them all to hell. Meanwhile, sadly, Glottis has fallen deathly ill. Manny learns from the demon stationed at the terminus that the only way to revive Glottis is to travel at high speeds to restore his purpose for being summoned. Manny and the others devise a makeshift fuel source to create a rocket train cart which quickly takes Manny and Meche back to Rubicava to save Glottis' life.
Yeah.
The 3 return to El Marrow, now found to be fully in Hector's control and renamed as Nuevo Marrow. Manny regroups with Sal and his expanded LSA, and with the help of Olivia, who volunteered to join the gang earlier in Rubicava, is able to learn about Hector's current activities. Further investigation reveals that Hector not only has been hoarding the number 9 tickets, but he has created counterfeit versions that he sold to others while keeping the real tickets for himself, in a desperate attempt to balance out his sinful life and get out of the land of the dead. Manny tries to confront Hector, but is lured into another trap by Olivia, who is revealed to be Hector's girlfriend.
No.
She has also captured Sal, and Manny is taken to Hector's greenhouse to be sprouted.
No, he's going to be sprouted.
Step into my greenhouse.
Manny is able to defeat Hector after Sal sacrifices himself to prevent Olivia from interfering. Manny and Meche find the real double-end tickets, including the one that Meche should have received. Manny makes sure the rest of the tickets are given to their rightful owners. In turn, he is granted his own ticket for his good deeds. Together, Manny and Meche board the number 9 for their happy journey to the ninth underworld, while Glottis, who cannot join them, waves a tearful goodbye.
Oh.
And that's,
Yeah,
that
it's a
is
bit
how
of
it
a,
ends.
yeah, it was.
So
lovely
what happens
end.
to Glottis?
Well, he gets to stay there, in the land
gets
of
helping
the dead.
people out.
They're summoned, and that that his purpose is to go fast and repair
So
cars.
he doesn't get a
and-
journey to anywhere then?
No.
He just is
No,
there.
don't make me think about it too much. Get all sad. Poor Glottis. He's like one of the, he's
man.
like one
It's
of
a
the best
really
bits in the
cool
game.
story.
It
And
is
you've
a-
inspired me to
No,
watch
I
the
haven't.
walkthrough.
Watch it.
What,
Just-
all 5 hours of it? Or sit
it's
down?
worth watching, like the movie, because obviously people put the cutscenes and everything together as a movie on YouTube. That's worth a watch.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is. Again, there's some cool elements in year 4. I like the bit where you have to go to the florist
I do
to
as
get the
well.
special bullets, but then there's a crocodile in the sewers.
Yeah, and you have to sort of move the.
You have to. So
car
you've got
thing.
a car with like extending legs, if you
It's
like.
like Pimp My Ride.
Yeah. You have to like trap the crocodile's tail so that you can. Oh, and it's obviously a giant skeletal.
Crocodile in the sewers. I've seen that somewhere before.
Yes, Resident Evil. We mentioned it again.
Yeah.
This is a skeletal crocodile, obviously,
Oh, okay.
to fit in with the theme. But
Yeah.
you have to trap his tail
Makes a
so
lot
that you
more
can go
sense.
past, and you have to use a scythe again, don't you, on the bell in the
Yeah,
the
which took me a while to get my head around.
Yeah.
What, I can't. This guy's not helping me out, and the bell makes him sort of ping out of his kind of crazy mood.
That's
back
it.
to his,
Yeah.
well, customer service 101,
It
basically.
does. It just gives you what you want.
Yeah.
There you go. But what did you think about the ending? I thought the ending was quite cool. You have like it's quite cinematic.
I
Where you
quite
have
like
your showdown with
the big greenhouse at the
Yeah.
end, and how I thought that was very clever. Actually, by then I could tell the game was so close to finishing. I was
Yeah.
like, well, all right, I want to finish this now and really sort of savor it. And I have to say, the ending was so good. The way it
very cool.
sprouted at the end. And everything.
Yes. Yeah,
So
because you
good.
put the sproutella into the water system that feeds the sprinklers in the greenhouse, so there's no escape.
That's right. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I like that bit of the game, actually. I quite like how you go back. I quite like it when
Yes.
puzzle games make you go back to the previous
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
location, but in a slightly different...
You do slightly different things. So you have to go and get the costume, don't you?
You do.
So you have to pour the coffee on the guys.
That's
that are
right.
The
The-
actors.
the
It's like,
clowns.
oh no, yeah, and you go and put the costume on, and yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, the puzzles obviously not to everyone's taste. But
Yeah.
to say the least.
One of them sitting
I,
there.
I've
say
played
the
a lot of those LucasArts games, and hey, I'm not trying to be too negative, but the puzzles I've played better puzzles in other games.
Yeah.
But the setting and the story is up there with the best. I really mean that. I like it a lot. I don't think you're wrapping up, Keith, necessarily. But
Yeah,
just-
no, we're going
I
to talk
really
about the
enjoyed
reception
it.
now. So
I did really enjoy it. I did use the walkthrough a few times in each year because if I didn't, I probably would have given up.
The
and I'd like
frustration
before.
would have
It did
won,
get,
yeah.
It did get a bit frustrating now and then, especially when I thought, oh, okay, I wouldn't have worked that out anyway. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, amen for the guys and girls that put those walkthroughs out
Yeah.
there.
yeah. Oh god.
Because I think you'd
Oh
otherwise.
man, there's
you-
so many games I wouldn't have finished without walkthroughs.
I mean, I'm actually really interested to hear about like what people thought of it and
Okay.
what critics purely because
That's convenient.
Well, no, seriously, because
Yeah.
you've got there's such a it's a great story. It's so immersive.
Yeah.
It's so well drawn and written and etc. Oh, but the puzzles, how does that stack up?
Well, let's have a look. Quick reception. Grim Fandango gained critical acclaim upon its release. Aggregating review website Metacritic gave the game a score of 94 out of 100.
Ouch!
Critics lauded the art direction in particular, with GameSpot rating the visual design as consistently great. PC Zone emphasised the production as a whole, calling the direction, costumes, characters, music and atmosphere expertly done. They also commented the game would make a superb film. The San Francisco Chronicle stated Grim Fandango feels like a wild dance through a cartoonish film noir adventure. Fair. Its wacky characters, seductive puzzle-filled plot, and a nearly invisible interface. That's true. There's no HUD or anything at all on screen, which sometimes you need just that little bit of a nudge, especially if you're new to adventure games, into sort of where am I going, what am I doing. Allows players to lose themselves in the game just as cinema goers might get lost in a movie. The Houston Chronicle, in naming Grim Fandango the best game of 1998 along with Half-Life, complimented the graphics, calling them jaw-dropping, and commented that the game is full of both dark and light humour. IGN summed its review up by saying the game was the best adventure game it had ever seen. Next Generation reviewed the PC version of the game, rating it 5 out of 5, and stated that Grim Fandango is a smart, beautiful, and enjoyable adventure game that will leave you holding your breath waiting for Grim Fandango 2. Yeah. I hope no one did that, because they would be dead.
They'll be well on their way.
They'll be in the land of the dead.
They'll be well on their way, won't they?
In 1999, Next Generation listed Grim Fandango as number 26 on their top 50 games of all time. Oof. Commenting that Grim offered adventure fans funny, touching, and infuriating moments in following its characters, and it did so through a magnificently beautiful game. It won several awards after its release. PC Gamer selected it as the 1998 Adventure Game of the Year. It won IGN's Best Adventure Game of the Year. GameSpot awarded it their Best of E3 1998, PC Adventure Game of the Year, PC Game of the Year, Best PC Graphics for Artistic Design, Best PC Music.
So they thought it was okay then.
And its Game of the Year award for 1998, and the following year included the game in their 10 best PC game soundtracks. Grim Fandango. The
soundtrack is amazing, by the way, isn't it?
I'm going to mention that separately in a sec. Yeah. Grim Fandango has been included in several publishers' top games lists well after its release. GameSpot inducted the game into their greatest games of all time in 2003, citing, ask just about anyone who's played Grim Fandango, and he or she will agree that it's one of the greatest games of all time. Adrian, would you agree with that? That's quite high praise if you didn't enjoy the game.
Not
if you
the
don't enjoy the
game
gameplay, that's...
No.
GameSpy also added the game to their Hall of Fame in 2004, describing it as the 7th most underrated game of all time. How do you rank that? How do you rank the most underrated games of all time? So why?
Diddy Kong rating.
They've clearly rated it quite highly anyway.
Yeah.
Like, given all that big
what are the other 6?
So how is it underrated?
I don't know. Well, that's it. By doing a list of most underrated, surely it's no longer underrated.
Yeah, you've rated them.
You've now rated it. Anyway.
Whoa.
It's like a slug.
Adventure Gamers listed Grim Fandango as the 7th top adventure game of all time. In their 2011 list of top... Hang on, that doesn't make sense. They listed it 7th in 2004, but by 2011, it was listed as number 1. So that's odd.
Interesting.
In 2007, IGN included the game in the top 25 PC games and the top 100 games of all time, citing that LucasArts' second-to-last stab at the classic adventure genre may very well be the most original and brilliant one ever made.
So a few people liked it.
Just a few.
Okay.
Just a few, yeah. And while we're discussing the game's reception, as Aid said, special mention must go to the soundtrack. It's got an original soundtrack that combines an orchestral score, South American folk music, jazz, bebop, swing, big band music, inspired by the likes of Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman, as well as film composers Max Steiner and Adolf Deutsch. It also has various influences from traditional Russian, Celtic, Mexican, Spanish, and Indian culture. It was composed and produced by Peter McConnell at LucasArts and was released on CD in 1998. You loved it.
Yeah, I like the music actually.
It just fit really perfectly, didn't it?
It did.
It really did. The soundtrack itself was well received. IGN called it a beautiful soundtrack that you'll find yourself listening to even after you're done with the game. And that the compositions and performances are so good that listening to this album on a standalone basis can make people feel like they're in a bar from back then. I don't know when back then is, when they were dead, or in the 1930s probably. Game Revolution, in their review, praised it as one of the most memorable soundtracks ever to grace the inside of a cranial cavity where an eardrum used to be. Very nice. In 2017, Fact magazine listed it as one of the 100 best video game soundtracks of all time. Fact. In 1999's Academy of Interactive Arts and Scientists Annual Interactive Achievement Awards, it's catchy, the soundtrack was nominated in the category of Outstanding Achievement in Sound and Music. And it was also lauded by GameSpot, who awarded it the Best PC Music Award and included it in the 10 Best PC Game Soundtracks list in 1999. Now, sales figures, not so easy to come by. As you know, James, we've talked about this before.
I spoke to you about this a while back, and I was like, I think it was like my first.
It's for Mega Man, wasn't it? It was trying to find the original game's figures.
Literally, there was nothing. There was nothing. Everyone would kind of wax lyrical about how great they were. And it was like, what was it?
But until it became a hit sales-wise, you could, the figures just aren't there.
Nope.
But according to Tim Schafer, Grim Fandango had achieved sales of approximately 500,000 units by 2012, which was around 50% fewer than Full Throttle had achieved.
So it's not a huge amount. I mean, it's
No,
not
$500,000. No. It's commonly considered a commercial failure, even though LucasArts stated that Grim Fandango met domestic expectations and exceeded them worldwide.
How weird, like, to me, that's a bit, well, it is strange and it isn't. Like, massive critical acclaim. Clearly, people loved it, but they didn't love it enough to buy it.
Again, it's something that sort of come up before about this. This was probably like the last hurrah of like the classic era of point and click adventure games. And again, by that time, we're deep in the 32-bit console era, and maybe just even though it looked amazing and sounded amazing, and it was a great story.
It's a bit of a shame, really, isn't it? That it didn't kind of do better. But
It's a nature of the time, unfortunately, because point and click games have been losing their way a bit. Then people wanted other stuff. I blame RTS games. I'm just going to say that.
Well, there we go.
So it was on the way out, and Monkey Island was losing its legs a little bit. People they wanted look at Warcraft Adventures. That should have exploded, but no one. It never got finished. That wasn't. This is like the last throw of the dice.
So the game had become profitable by the year 2000, although Dave Grossman has said it was pretty ambitious and expensive, and I don't think it made very much money back. As Edge magazine summarised in 2009, while its reputation as a flop isn't entirely accurate, Grim's sales were either an indication that people preferred motorbikes to cigarette-smoking corpses, or a sign of the times adventure games were simply on their way out. While LucasArts proceeded to produce Escape from Monkey Island in 2000, they cancelled the development of sequels to Sam and Max Hit the Road and Full Throttle, stating that after careful evaluation of current marketplace realities and underlying economic considerations, we've decided that this was not the appropriate time to launch a graphic adventure on the PC. Subsequently, the studio dismissed many of the people involved with their adventure games, some of whom went on to set up Telltale Games, who are now very famous for their episodic adventure games. These events, Walking Dead, and they've done loads, haven't they? These events, along with the video game market trending towards action-based games, are seen as primary causes in the decline of the adventure game genre. LucasArts stated in 2006 that they did not plan on returning to adventure games until the next decade, and ultimately the studio stopped developing video games in 2013 after the Walt Disney Company acquired Lucasfilm, and it was dissolved shortly thereafter.
Like God knows how many other companies they've vacuumed up.
So legacy, just as we come to the end, the legacy of Grim Fandango. In 2005, The Guardian characterised the game as the last genuine classic to come from LucasArts, the company that helped define adventure games. Tim Schafer's noir pastiche follows Skullface Manny Calavera through a bureaucratic parody of the Land of the Dead, with a look that takes from both Mexican mythology and Art Deco. Grim Fandango is as unique an artistic statement as mainstream gaming has yet managed to offer. While loved by its devotees, its limited sales prompted LucasArts to back away from original adventures to simply exploit franchises. Sad. Eurogamer's Jeffrey Machuleff, in a 2012 retrospective, believed that Grim Fandango's combination of film noir and the adventure game genre was the first of its kind and a natural fit due to the script-heavy nature of both, and would later help influence games with similar themes like Ace Attorney series and LA Noire. Grim Fandango has been considered a representative title demonstrating video games as an art form. The game was selected in 2012 as a candidate for public voting for inclusion in the Smithsonian Institution's The Art of Video Games exhibit, while the Museum of Modern Art seeks to install the game as an exhibit as part of its permanent collection within the Department of Architecture and Design, that's really cool.
That is cool. That's a big blade.
The game was included in the Game Masters exhibition organised in 2012 by the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, an event devoted to explore the faces behind the history of computer games. Tim Schafer was featured as the creative force within the exhibition called Game Changers, crediting him and a few other visionary game designers for having pushed the boundaries of game design and storytelling, introducing new genres, creating our best loved characters, and revolutionising the way we understand and play games. The game itself has been the centrepiece of a large fan community for the game that's continued to be active more than, it's now 20 years after the game's release. Such fan communities include the Grim Fandango Network and the Department of Death, both of which include fan art and fiction in addition to other original content. In an interview with Kotaku after the announcement of the remastered version of the game, Schafer stated that he'd long considered the idea of a Grim Fandango sequel to further expand on the setting of the game. He felt the story would be a difficult component, as either they would have to figure a means to bring Manny back from his final reward or otherwise build the story around a new character. One option he considered to alleviate that issue is by creating an adventure game using an open world mechanic similar to the GTA series.
Wow.
GTA Grim Fandango.
GTA Grim Fandango. I mean, I'd love to be able to
Grim
explore.
Theft Auto.
Yeah,
Very good.
But I like that though. I mean, if you think one of the fun parts, again, like talking about like Rubicava, one of the bits I really enjoyed is sort of exploring the world. And if you just went, okay, well, it's now less of an adventure game, more of an open world game, and building on the places that you visit in the story, I would play that. I would enjoy that.
I would.
And so that's it. That's Grim Fandango. So, Dill, do you think you would at least maybe watch someone else play it?
I would definitely.
I like the way you just very gently dipped your toe in there.
I would definitely watch someone else play it. I want to see all of that kind of unfold and all these like funny little things.
It's worth the dialogue and the story. It is worth experiencing, definitely.
Well,
without the frustration of the puzzles, probably it's the best way to do it.
I suppose again, kind of needling reviewers a little bit. They'd have access to a walkthrough or something on cheats and something. Like,
of course,
they wouldn't. A lot of those reviews are probably written by people who haven't experienced the frustrations of trying to work out these dumb puzzles. But
it's true. It's true.
But
Tell us how you really
that was
feel.
part and parcel of the adventure thing. Like, you got stuck. You had to find a magazine that had a walkthrough.
Yeah.
I remember those days.
Back then,
it's sort of that time, that late kind of 90s, was still kind of clinging on to that. Now it's just gaming is different. Today's gamer wouldn't have Grim Fandango.
We're less patient, aren't we? Back in the day, I could watch any old movie and say, "Oh, fair, I'll just watch it." But now
we are less patient. Yeah.
We are less patient. And these sort of games, you need to have some patience. I think.
Oh, definitely.
But is that just because we're old, or is that
So if you mobile phones,
if you
smartphones have done it to us.
Yeah, oh no, everything is now, it's instant gratification. You've literally got information, games and movies, etc. It's on tap.
Yeah.
You can watch a film on your phone in seconds. You can play a game on your phone in seconds.
Yeah.
So
instant.
But is that to kind of, because as we know that the whole sort of retro revival and especially games like that that look and sound just outstanding in their field. There's an appetite. It's always been building, as we've said. We're coming up to those 250, 300 episodes of talking about this kind of stuff, and it's only getting bigger. Do appetites kind of grow for this sort of thing? And clearly there's a following still.
Oh, definitely.
So there's another kind of thing that does that kind of, do you blow the lid open on that again and create something? I don't know. Yeah, the puzzles, frustrating, time to put into it. Yeah, maybe some people wouldn't bother, but there's only got to be enough people out there to do it, to make it successful, I suppose. Who knows?
There was obviously enough of a demand out there in the first place for it to be remasters, and it only sold 500,000 copies, but it was literally only available on PC.
Yes.
At that point. So I imagine I would be interested. I couldn't find them, but to see what the sales are now, post remaster, where it's been available on PlayStation, Switch, Xbox, etc. Aid, before we go, would you... Oh, go on.
I don't know if you know about this, Keith, but in 2018, Tim Schafer...
Yes, I've seen that.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah,
but I think Jack Black was involved as well. They got the orchestra involved, and they did a bit of a read through of the main parts.
Yeah,
of the
I think
script.
it was at E3 or something.
E3
and they
Coliseum,
sat down on stage and they went through some of this, like a live reading of the script.
Nice.
They had the music.
About an hour, yeah.
It's worth a watch if you're a fan of the game.
That's very cool.
Yeah, definitely. Aid, where would you rank it in your pantheon of LucasArts adventure games?
Right,
taking into account all aspects. Not just the frustration you felt.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one for me because nostalgia, it's not a huge nostalgia for me because I only played it very briefly when I was a young whippersnapper. But for me, is it my favourite Tim Schafer point-and-click game? I don't know. I quite like Full Throttle. I think Full Throttle, the puzzles are better. I'm always... I hate to say it, and I love the art of Grim Fandango, but I'm a stickler for that 2D, that colourful LucasArts feel. But I do, the setting, it puts it up there. So it's not my favourite LucasArts point-and-click game, I'm going to be honest with you, but it's not the bottom one. Okay, it's in the middle.
It's in the middle.
I'm sitting on the fence, so it's smack in the middle for me.
James, do you think you're going to go on and play it?
I do actually want to play it.
Yeah.
Like
that's good to hear.
I mean, I'm not completely averse to puzzles. I mean,
I'm going to buy you a stress ball or print out the wallpaper.
I've got plenty of stress balls. I have 3 young children, and no, just
Don't use them as stress balls.
No, they're not stress balls. Just to but no, I actually do, because I haven't played it, but I have watched several videos on the cutscenes, the intro. There was someone that did actually a commentary over the intro about some of the development. And someone that did like a whistle stop on the 4 years, stuff like that. So I've seen, the characters and that sort of thing. And, it looks just, really engaging and really colourful. And then obviously you've got all of the art, all of the film noir feel to it. Yeah. So, and like you say, all of the sounds of things going on in the distance, stuff like that. So I love that type of stuff. I love that
the world building is really
the extra
good.
layer of all of the feelings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's great. So I do think I'd actually, go and play it. And as I say, I can get the remastered for a tenner on Xbox.
Excellent.
And I do think I might give it a stab.
Good. Glad to hear it.
And based on what you've said, so bravo.
Well, thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you made it past the intro, thank you very much.
That's a great intro.
And if you can, check out Grim Fandango. It's available everywhere. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can tweet us at Arcade Attack UK. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/arcadeattackuk. Check out our website at arcadeattack.co.uk for lots more retro gaming goodness and to delve into our archives. Our podcasts are also available on Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a review and a rating, we'd really appreciate it. If you'd like to support Arcade Attack, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/arcadeattack, which will give you access to exclusive podcasts, interviews and other bonus content. So, until next time, take care and we'll speak to you soon.